Hello learners, welcome to my channel. If you understand my video, please click on the like button and subscribe my channel. So let's begin. Today we are going to study about the popular struggles and the movements. Let us see the overview what we are going to study in this chapter 5 popular struggles and movements. In the earlier chapter, we discussed why power sharing is very important in democracy. What happens when we share the power? How power is important? That we had studied in our last chapter. If you don't remember, please watch my earlier video of democracy. Let us begin. And we have seen how different tiers of government and various social groups share power to each other. Also, we are going to study about the discussion and see those who exercise the power are constrained by influence. Those who have power, they are also constrained by influence and pressure. It's not like that when a person becomes powerful, he can do whatever he wants. No, the higher authorities than him, they pressurize because they also have the power. In the same way, democracy almost invariably involves conflict of interest and viewpoints. These differences are often expressed in different ways. We begin this chapter with a discussion how struggles around conflicting demands and pressure shape the democracy. Now, this chapter also leads to analyze the different ways and organizations through which an ordinary citizen can play a role in democracy. In this chapter, we'll look at the indirect ways of influencing politics through pressure groups and movements. This leads us in the next chapter to direct ways of controlling politic power in the form of political parties. The last point we are going to study in the next chapter. Right now, we are going to see popular struggles and movements. In spite of having the powers, how struggles they have to make, what kind of war they have to face, and what kind of decision they have to take so that there will be peace everywhere. Now, in this chapter, they have given the example of Nepal and Bolivia. Let us see that. Popular struggles in Nepal and Bolivia. Do you remember the story of the triumph of democracy in Poland? We studied in last year in the first chapter of class 9. Those who don't know, in the YouTube, please go and watch that video, The Democracy of Poland. It's very, very interesting. Then only you can relate that story. That story reminds us about the role played by the people in making of democracy. It was really great story how the people played important role in making democracy in Poland. Today we are going to see about the two different stories of Nepal and Bolivia. Let us start. Movement for democracy in Nepal. Nepal witnessed an extraordinary popular movement in April 2006. And this movement aimed for democracy. Nepal, you might recall, was one of the third wave countries that had won democracy in 1990. Although the king formally remained the head of the state, the king is always the head of the state. The real power was exercised by popularly elected representative. King will be head, but the representative who was elected will have the real power. King Birendra, who has accepted this transition from absolute monarchy to constitutional monarchy, was killed in a mysterious massacre of the royal family in 2001. It is really great. It is really very difficult to accept that. But this king was very great that he accepted. But afsos, he was killed in a massacre. King Gyanendra, the new king of the Nepal, was not prepared to accept this all democratic rule because he will be just king. He will be the head, but he will not have any powers. The real powers will be only with the representative. So the new king who was been elected, the king Gyanendra, he was not ready to accept. It took him a lot of time to accept these new things. Also, he took the advantage of the weakness and unpopularity of the democratically elected government. Now see, when new thing is coming, whether it's our home or a country, few people are with that rule, few people are not with that rule, means not supporting the rule. So the new king, he took advantage of these things, the one who are not interested in democracy. He took them and he did many things, but it was not correct. It was not legal actually, and that's why in February 2005 the king was dismissed because he was breaking the rules and taking lot of advantage of the people who were not supporting democracy in that country. Next, another prime minister and dissolved the popularity elected parliament, and this created lot of troubles even for the people and the king itself. The movement of April 2006 was aimed at regaining popular control over the government from the king. Now the movement was started again so that they can take all over the control from king. The government started that rule in April 2006. You can see the rallies, how people were doing, the one who were not supporting king and the one who needed representatives. Let us see what happened next. All the major political parties in the parliament formed a seven party alliance and called for a 4-day strike in Kathmandu, the country's capital. This protest soon turned into an indefinite strike in which most insurgents and various other organizations joined hands. How we have NGOs, that way they have different organizations. They also joined the hand with the parliament and they were ready to support. People defined curfew and took to the streets. There were curfew and many people came on the streets to support that we need a representative and not the monarchy. We need democracy. The security forces found themselves unable to take one more than lakh people who gathered almost every day to demand restoration of democracy. Here we have seen the king who took the advantage of the people who were not supporting democracy, and he went on taking advantages and lot of problems were created. And now to resolve these problems the government was taking control from the king, and slowly the people who were supporting democracy came on the road with the rallies, with the slogans, with oppositions, and they met in Kathmandu, the capital of that country, Nepal. They came and they said that we want the restoration of democracy. The number of the protest was increasing day by day, and from 1 lakh it went to 3 lakh, and then later on it went to 5 lakhs on 21st April. And they served an ultimatum to the king. The leaders of the movement rejected the half hearted concessions made by the king. They stuck to their demands for restoration of parliament power to an all party government and a new constituent assembly. The people, they were stuck to the decision. They were not ready to change and they were not ready to go at their home. They were sitting in their rally itself, demanding for restoration of democracy in the country. So, on 24th April 2006, the last day of the ultimatum, the king was forced to concede all three demands, and he had no other option. The SPA chose Girija Prasad Koraila as the new Prime Minister of the interim government. The restored parliament met and passed laws, whatever the people asked for. The SPA and Maoist came to an understanding about how the new Constituent Assembly was going to be elected. They tried to understand, they worked on it, and hence the struggle came to an end. And it was Nepal's second movement for democracy. The struggle of the Nepali people is a source of inspiration to Democrats all over the world. How they came together and they fought for their rights and they asked for restoration of democracy. Let us see what happened later. Now, Bolivia's water war. Earlier we had seen the story of the Nepal. Now let us see about the Bolivia's water war. The story of Poland and that of Nepal apply to struggling for establishing of restoring democracy. The story of Poland and Nepal were about the democracy. But the role of popular struggle does not come to an end. The one who struggles has to struggle for lifetime. He gains success, but next his another struggle starts over there. People's successful struggle against privatization of water in Bolivia reminds us that the popular struggle are integral to the working of democracy. Bolivia was a very poor country in the Latin America. The World Bank pressurized the government to give up its control of municipal water supply and they said that make it private. But the government sold these rights for the city of Cochabamba to a multinational company. Let's see then what happened. The company immediately increased the price of the water by 4 times. Now, when it is private, definitely they are going to increase the price. But as we have learned, Bolivia was a poor country. It was located in Latin America. Then the company immediately increased the price. Many people received monthly water bill as 1000, where countries average income is around 5000 a month. So how they can pay 1000 just for water? How they will pay the rents, food, school fees, their other expenses? That's not at all possible. This led to a spontaneous popular protest. All the people came together and they thought to do a protest. In January 2000, a new alliance of labor, human rights, and community leaders organized a successful 4-day general strike in the city. They came together and they thought, let us do a strike. The government agreed to negotiate and the strike was called off. Government said that we are ready to negotiate, take off the strike. But nothing happened. When the strike was taken off, the price remained as it is. They kept promising we will negotiate, but they didn't. The police restored to the brutal repression when the agitation was started again in the February. The people were hurt brutally. But let's see what happened. Another strike followed in April. First they did the strike, but it was taken off as government promised them that we will negotiate. Then the government didn't negotiate it. Again in February they did a strike, but they were brutally hurt. Third, again in the April they made a strike and the government imposed martial law. But the power of the people forced the officials of the MNC to flee the city and made the government concede to all the demands of the protester. In the third April strike, what they did, they came in huge numbers. And now the government has to listen to the protesters. So the contract with the MNC was cancelled and the water supply was again given to municipality. And the old rates were again renewed. This came to be known as the Bolivia's water war. This was all about the water war. You may get a question about the water war for 5 marks. You need to explain this story in detail with this example and also write few lines about Bolivia's water war. How did they came together, how they struggled for a few days and how they won the war. Next, let us see about the democracy and popular struggles. These two stories are from very different contexts. The movement in the Nepal was to establish democracy, while the struggle in Bolivia involved claims on an elected democratic government. The popular struggle in Bolivia was about one specific policy, which the struggle in Nepal was about the foundation of the country's politics. Here in that paragraph, they are explaining that Bolivia's water war was for the people, and Nepal's struggle, it was also for people, but it was for changing the democratic government. They wanted democratic government to removing the monarchy. Both the struggles were successful, but their impact was different. Despite these differences, both the stories share some elements which are relevant to the study of the past and future democracies. Whenever in history people think of democracy, they always remember the Nepal's incident. In both cases, the struggle involved mass mobilization. Public demonstration of mass support clinched the dispute. If there is unity, then only we can win. If there is no unity, we can't win. Finally, both instances involve critical role of political organizations. If you recall the first chapter of class 9 textbook, this is how the democracy has evolved. Therefore, we can draw few conclusions. Let us see what are the conclusions. The first one is democracy evolves through popular struggle. If we struggle, we can definitely get democracy, but we need to struggle. If we say we will sit at home and we want democracy, that's not possible. It is possible that some significant decisions may take place through conscious and may not involve any conflict. It is hardly possible, but always there can be a conflict. Defining movements of the democracy usually involve conflict between those groups who have exercised the power and the one who aspire for share in the power. These both are going to have conflicts definitely. And these movements come when the country is going through transition to democracy, expansion of democracy, or whether it is a deepening of democracy. This was the first conclusion. Remaining, we are going to study in our second part of this chapter. Here I end the part 1. See you in the part 2 of the popular struggles. Till then, have a great time. Listen to my video very carefully. Read the chapter. Thank you. Don't forget to subscribe my channel.